Hey, it's TPUSA contributor John Root. We are so excited to be with y'all at YWLS as we continue fighting the culture war. Now is the time to get off the couch and stand for what's right. If you want to help us win, consider donating by texting DONATE to 71776. Again, that's DONATE to 71776. We appreciate your support.
We're driving cars on a Mars tonight. We're blasting off to the stars tonight. We wanna go, go. We wanna go, go. We're driving cars on a Mars tonight. We're blasting off to the stars tonight. We wanna go, go. We wanna go, go.
See, funny thing about love is you never really know when it's coming, but you better believe you'll know when it's there. True story. I must have been searching, though I wasn't looking for much. Checking out the scene, wasn't trying to get my numbers up. You know I keep it cool. I prefer to stay in the cut. Don't want no attention on me when I'm trying to shake the blues up off me. But then I saw your face. It caused my heart to race. Girl, you're looking like $1,000,000. Something about the way you strut your stuff. Oh, girl, you're fine as you wanna. What I'm supposed to do? Something told me got time to lose. Go ahead and bust a move. Funny thing about love, when it comes and goes, you never know. So you gotta keep your heart exposed, and you can be sure there's no cause and no cure. And if it wants you, oh, it'll come and find you. Fall back just a little. Don't wanna lead you on. Don't wanna push a feeling and make the feeling go. You see, I got your number, but still I ain't used the phone. No, I let it breathe for a minute, baby. Next thing I know, you call. Damn. One thing I know about love, you never know when it's coming, but you sure know it when it does. Yeah. One thing I know about love, you might get what you ask for, so you better be sure it's what you want. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
What's up, YWLS? Paige Rue here. This is one of the most epic events in the conservative movement. obviously, but the party doesn't stop here. You, yes you, can get involved in TPUSA action happening around the country throughout the year. Learn more, start a chapter, and maybe even meet more 2A baddies by texting PAGE to 7-1776. Don't miss your shot.
There's no cause and no cure. And when it wants you, all men come and find you. Yeah. One thing I know about love, you never know when it's coming, but you sure know it when it does. Yeah. One thing I know about love, you might get what you ask for, so you better be sure.
are live back at YWLS. I almost got the acronym wrong. That would have been embarrassing. But holy moly, it has been a day. I don't know if you were watching earlier, but President Donald Trump called in to the event talking to Charlie Kirk earlier this morning. And that wasn't even that was super exciting. But also, one of the contributors, Stephen Magahall Davis, proposed to his girlfriend, now fiance. Which honestly, I'm a little upset about because that takes Stephen off the market and me ribbing him about not being married and stuff. But you know what? I'll get over it. Congratulations, Stephen. And also, holy moly, the energy in this room has been unbelievable. I wasn't in the room specifically when President Trump called in on the phone. I was around the corner, but I heard it was happening. I've never run that fast in my entire life, and I was very sweaty doing it. But it's been crazy. The speakers that we've had here has been unbelievable. We've got congresswomen coming. We've got Candace Owens coming up in just a little bit. I think is she on this specific stream? Yeah, Candace will be here. I think she's at 4:30. Matt Walsh just got announced. His new movie documentary, What is a Woman, is out now on the Daily Wire, and I think he's going to be here talking to Charlie Kirk about that tonight at 7, which is going to be hilarious. I know that this is a women's conference, but Matt Walsh is doing some great research on what is a woman with his new documentary. If you haven't watched it already, check it out. It is unbelievable. The weekend's going to continue going on. If the only thing that happened was what happened already, it still would have been a stellar conference. We've already had massive names. Laura Trump was here yesterday. All of the stuff that happened this morning would have made this event awesome just in and of itself. But the fact that it's only halfway done is still unbelievable. And I'm just super pumped. Who are you guys excited to see here? Who are you excited to see coming up?
I think mostly Candace. I really want to see Candace.
She's at 4:30. She's like pretty soon. I think so. Who are you excited to see?
Same.
Is it Candace? Everybody? Candace?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see everyone.
Did you see President Trump this morning?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I was almost in tears. Oh my gosh, I love that so much.
What's been your favorite moment so far?
Every moment so far, just enjoying each session. Yes.
Every single one?
Yes, they've all been great.
Do you think you're going to have like a highlight at the end of the weekend? What do you think it's going to be?
Probably today's event so far.
Yeah.
They've been the highlight, especially this morning. So yeah.
Yeah. Did you go to breakout session?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Firearms.
The firearms one, yeah. That one.
With Paige and a bunch of the girls doing firearms? Did you learn anything you don't know?
Huh?
Did you learn anything you don't know?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Definitely gonna be downloading some podcasts. for sure.
It has been awesome. So this thing gets filled up. It's nuts because I was here kind of going like, well, it looks kind of empty. What's going on here? Little did I know that everyone's just getting out of breakout sessions and coming back from lunch, and you can't find a seat anymore if you tried. The turnout has been unreal at YWLS this year. Does that mean keep going or wrap it up? We're keeping going. Oh, wrap it up. 2 different signals. I'm not entirely sure. So, you guys are in for a treat. Continue to watch the live stream as best you can. Hopefully your internet stays connected. Who knows if there's the deep state trying to disconnect you from the truth. But we got more of an amazing day coming up. It doesn't end. It's hard to continue ramping up, but that's just what this event is doing. It's continuing to get bigger and get louder and get more energy as the day continues and as the weekend continues. If you're not here, you should be. But since you're not already and you're watching the live stream, you should come next year. Go to tpusa.com/YWLS so you can register. I don't know if they have the date or anything set for next year yet, but make sure you get here because I haven't met or talked to anybody that hasn't said they're having a great time. So, with that, we're going to throw it to our live feed of the stage. And what? Oh, we have 4 minutes and 20 seconds left until our next speaker comes out. Don't miss it. You're going to enjoy it. Have a great day. God bless America.
Till 5 in the morning, do it again in the morning, do it like we did this ride, man. I think the government watching, man, it's the perfect society. Struggling with my sobriety, struggling with my anxiety. Are you feeling the insanity? Anger inside of me, there is a war in me, and it keep trying to me. Blinded by all of the vanity, snakes all around and they rattling. Tell them to shut up the chattering. Blow up the spot, then we running. Ready or not, here we coming. Somebody better say a prayer for me. Tonight may get a little crazy. You can meet me outside, but you better buckle up. It's a wild ride. Welcome to the wild side. Wild, wild, wild. Welcome to the wild side. Wild, wild, wild. Welcome to the wild side. Wild, wild, wild. Welcome to the wild side. Wild side. Hope you're ready for it now. We gon' be running your town. Oh, we ain't playing around. We gon' be shutting it down. Hope you're ready for it now. We gon' be running your town. Oh, we ain't playing around. We gon' be shutting it down. Welcome to the wild side. Wild, wild, wild. Welcome to the wild side. Wild, wild, wild. Welcome to the wild side. Wild, wild, wild. Welcome to the wild side. Wild side.
We're driving cars on a Mars tonight. We're blasting off to the stars tonight. We wanna go, go. We wanna go, go.
What's going on, y'all? This is amazing. Thanks for coming out. Don't you want to be around these people all the time? If so, text GET INVOLVED to 71776 to find out how you can. Or if you want to invite me or other contributors to your campus to scare your snowflake colleagues, Text chapter to build TPUSA at your school. Text 71776.
To 7-1776. That's Alex to 7-1776. Our end game is to save America. Are you ready for it?
Well, hello. Looks like everyone's back from lunch for the most part. Hopefully you guys had a good lunch. I'm Stephanie Hamill. It's great to see you guys. I am a Turning Point ambassador. I'm also a journalist. I've worked in news and politics for almost 15 years. I started off as a local news anchor for a CBS affiliate in Arizona, and then after that, did a few things, and I ended up working for Fox 5 in Washington, D.C., as a host, as well as a video columnist for the Daily Caller, which was co-founded by Tucker Carlson. You may have heard of him. And after that, I hosted my own show on One America News Network. It's a political talk show, hour-long talk show. And yeah, I mean, it's been really interesting working in journalism and also being a conservative, because there's not a lot of us out there. As you know, there are a lot of people in the mainstream media who are very biased and very liberal. Now with me are Amber Athey and Lauren Chen. They both have worked in the media for so many years. They're very accomplished, and I'll let them give you a little bit more about their backgrounds. Amber, I'll start with you.
All right, thanks, Stephanie, and good to see all of you out there today. So we actually worked together at the Daily Caller a few years ago, and since then I've been with The Spectator, writing columns and reporting, and just launched my own podcast, actually, called Unfit to Print, which I'm really excited about. And thank you. And also just turned in the manuscript for my first book called The Snowflakes Revolt, which is very fitting for the panel topic today because it's about how wokeness infected the media. So that'll be coming out probably end of the year. So that's what I've been up to. Thanks, Steph.
So 7 years ago, I was a poli-sci graduate who, like most of us, was not working in anything to do with political science. And I randomly decided to one day make a YouTube video about what I saw was a very strange resurgence of craziness when it came to the issue of gender. I made a video about transgenders, and thankfully it put to rest the question of what is a woman, and that's why we're done with the issue today. So you're welcome, everybody. Just kidding. Obviously, the issue has only grown, but since then, I've been lucky enough to make content creation my full-time job. I've been fortunate to appear on The Blaze, Daily Wire, PragerU, Rebel News, and more. And probably my biggest accomplishment to date is that I am a new mom. And let me tell you, ladies, my life has not yet ended, and I am still having fun and able to do things. So don't believe everything you hear about motherhood.
I'm glad that you brought that up because we hear that so much. It's like the end of your career once you're a mom, but that is not true. And Lauren is an example of that. And it's just awesome to be in your presence.
Thank you.
And you look amazing, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Breastfeeding helps. That's what I will say.
Now, I have to say that the media landscape and just journalism in general has changed significantly over the years. And I would say that it dramatically changed in the past, I don't know, 5-6 years or since the 2016 presidential election, as you know, a lot of people in the media, they went absolutely berserk. I mean, they lost their minds. I think it was something called Trump derangement syndrome. It's a real thing, and they're still suffering from it, by the way. But, you know, it's just really interesting because when I went to journalism school, I went to the University of Arizona, and I studied journalism there. Do you got some zonies over there? A few. When I studied journalism, what we were told is that we had to be the watchdogs of the government, that we were there to report on what was going on in our communities and just kind of fight for the everyday people and expose corruption. And now we have people who are working in media who have abandoned their roles and duties in journalism. Instead of reporting the news, they're carrying water for the Democratic Party. And when they're doing that, think of the agendas and the narratives that they're pushing every single day on the news when they tell you they're not biased, that they don't have a dog in the fight, when they actually do. They never want to be honest about it. This agenda and narrative that they're pushing is very anti-women. And you think about it, none of it's pro-family, none of it's pro-America. As Lauren pointed out, it's, you know, they're very like anti-working woman who has a family and children. And so we take notice of that. We have a different perspective and cover things that most people don't. So Lauren, I'll have you give your assessment of where the news media is today and how that's negatively impacting women.
Well, as someone who talks about politics, I'm always very upfront that I am a commentator. I am not a journalist, because to me, you know, being a journalist means something. It means objectivity. It means being unbiased. It means getting the truth out there. Because I have so many opinions that I want to share with people, I feel like I don't deserve the title journalist, but unfortunately a lot of other journalists out there don't have that same hesitation that I do. And when it comes to being women, what I think we see in the media now is that the mainstream media has essentially politicized our entire gender. They've made being a woman into almost a progressive statement, which is so frustrating as someone who doesn't share those views, right? They try to make it seem like if you are pro-life, you hate women. If you want to be able to defend yourself, again, you hate women. If you want to stand up for women in women's sports, somehow that also means you hate women. It's just very frustrating, and I feel like, I love platforms like this because I think we need to reclaim the idea that no, the left does not have a monopoly on womanhood, despite what you might see in the mainstream media, because if all you ever watch is CNN, you might think that, yeah, every single woman is this blue-haired crazy feminist.
I think there was a moment in the media as well where they really abandoned this concept of presenting truth and facts and being objective, and they really changed sort of the psychology of what it meant to be a journalist. And the new psychology was that they needed to be like fighting on behalf of the downtrodden, right, and representing special interest groups. And for a short period of time, that meant writing stories about the victimization of women in particular. But in 2016, something happened. White women largely went for Trump. So white women became the enemy. They were no longer the victim group that the media had made them out to be prior. They were now the oppressors. They were lumped in, with white men, the other evil group in America that they love to demonize all the time. And so now the new victim groups for the media are the transgender community, the queer community, really anything in like the alphabet soup thing, and Happy Pride Month, I guess. I actually share a birthday with the start of Pride Month, which is a bit troublesome. But and then other groups like this, like minorities, they claim that minorities have like a special victim status, and so reporters have to fight on their behalf. But they warp the idea of what it means to actually speak for these communities, because they believe that these communities are monolithic in the way that they view political issues. And so it's really damaging, not just to the groups that they are claiming to fight for, but the groups that they've abandoned. And now they side with the government, they side with the corporations, they side with all of the power-holding institutions in America, and yet somehow claim that they are fighting on behalf of the oppressed. It's so twisted, the way that they've justified this to themselves.
Twisted, that's a perfect way to describe it. Speaking of twisted, Leah Thomas, have you heard of him? Exactly. Huge boo for Leah Thomas. So Leah Thomas, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Good Morning America, they recently did a full sit-down interview with Leah Thomas, who is the transgender swimmer, as you know, who made the waves this summer when he defeated biological females while swimming. And you just think about where we are today and how hard women have fought. Think about Title IX and what that meant for women. And all of a sudden, we have all of these so-called people who believe in science who are trying to convince us that biological males competing with women is acceptable or okay or normal. And if we have a question about it, they start to attack us. And so we're starting to see this quite a bit where biological males are competing against women, whether it be in sports or in the workplace, and they are crushing women, and then the mainstream media celebrates it. So Amber, this is kind of relatively a new thing. We've seen just an increase in the parading around and championing of transgender men in women's sports or in other areas. And it's very bizarre. I mean, I still can't get a full grasp of what's going on here.
Yeah, and it seems like it came out of nowhere, but I mean, really what happens is the media gets a lot of their stories and the way that they write about stories from left-wing interest groups. They really work in tandem. And so as the left-wing interest groups started making transgenderism the issue of the day, so did the media. And as I talk about in my book, one of the ways that they do this is the same people that you guys probably go to college with who are like real nutcases on campus, right? They graduate and they get hired by the New York Times and the Washington Post, and these woke warriors go and work for the mainstream media organizations, and they launch these internal revolts inside the newsroom so that the news companies have to talk about these issues in the progressive way that they desire. Otherwise, they throw a huge fit, they tarnish the company publicly, they get their friends involved, and it turns into a huge mess. So the media companies have actually started acquiescing to the woke mob's demands. They've started bringing in people from the Human Rights Campaign or other queer activist groups to come and lecture journalists about using the correct pronouns or avoiding terms like biological man or woman because it implies that the transgender individual is not a real man or woman. In fact, in some newsrooms, including Politico, you're not even really supposed to say someone identifies as a man or identifies as a woman, because by saying that they identify as such, you're denying that they're actually that thing that they say that they are. It's really nuts, but that's actually what they're doing. They're working with the left-wing activist groups to change the language that they're even using in their news articles, and part of that recently has manifested itself in the way that they give this glowing coverage to Leah Thomas.
Well, speaking of Leah Thomas and really the whole entire issue of trans women, I find that it's just, frankly, an excuse for mediocre men to gain recognition and attention. And it's really frustrating that the only time that we seem to celebrate women now is A, when they're not actually women, or B, when they're acting like men, meaning they're doing something a woman has never done before. I think there's nothing wrong with women just being women. I think that in and of itself is worth celebrating. So I don't think the media is actually for real women. But regarding the role that the media has really played in pushing this, it's really frustrating because we always hear that these wokesters, they are just a vocal minority. And it's true, the vast majority of people has no idea what Z's or pronouns are, thank goodness, unless maybe you're on a college campus, so you guys may have a different experience. But the reason why it feels like this is so overwhelming, the ideology, is because leftist activists have managed to insert themselves into positions of power, which includes the media, which includes so many of these different bureaucracies, which is why anytime you sign up for something, you're asked to pick out of how many genders nowadays. So that's really frustrating, because a conservative who works, for example, at the DMV, they are just a DMV worker, but a leftist activist who works at the DMV, they are an activist DMV worker. They really bring their politics to the workplace. The personal is political for them. And because conservatives for the longest time have just been frankly normal people, that's why we've been losing in the, I guess, everyday on-the-ground wars, because we're not, I guess, as forceful in our politics. And I would love it if we didn't need to be, but I think we're at the point now where we need that pushback.
I completely agree. I don't think it's good enough. Yeah, please, that's a great point. It's not good enough anymore for us to sit back and say, like, oh, we just don't want you to shove your politics down our throat, because when you see what the left has done over the past couple of years, they've shut down our churches, they told you that you're not allowed to see your family, they told you you weren't allowed to work, They rioted across the country and destroyed businesses and family homes, and yet we're supposed to somehow like sit back and take it. And then you see the media claiming, well, the right is fighting a culture war. No, the left started the culture war. We're finishing the culture war, right? And Lauren, you made another really good point I want to hit on, which is how when the left and the media talk about empowering women, their idea of empowering women is acting like a man. They want you to be sexually promiscuous. They want you to abandon notions of family until you're older so that you can chase a career. They want all of your visions of success to be financial. They want you to be assertive and bossy. And there's no room for traditional femininity in this type of framework that tells you that the only way to be empowered or happy is to act like the opposite sex.
That's right. Now, when it comes to Leah Thomas, every single time I hear a news story about Leah Thomas, I ask myself these two questions. Number one, where are the real so-called feminists, right? All of these people who are on TV, who are promoting Leah Thomas, they try to pretend that they're real feminists and that they care about women, but clearly they don't. And then my other question is, where's the outrage? I mean, there are so many people silent about it, and you would think that people would start asking questions like, hey, Leah Thomas competed as a male pretty much his entire life. Then all of a sudden he switched sides and now he's crushing women in sports, and they're quiet about it. Right, Amber? I mean, where are the feminists?
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. And what's sad, too, is there are some feminists who have spoken about this, and they get that nasty label TERF, which is, I guess, trans, exclusionary, radical feminists. It's like another one of those weird acronyms that they came up with. But look what's happening to J.K. Rowling, right? She's spoken out about this issue and said women should be able to have women's spaces. Like Leah Thomas shouldn't be able to be walking around with her ding-dong out in the locker room, and we're all supposed to accept it. And the women who actually complain about it are told that they're the problem, that they have to go to therapy because they don't want to see a male appendage in their own locker room. It's absolutely
that
nuts.
is a woman's penis, I will have you know.
I know, I was so bigoted of me.
But I think the whole Leah Thomas issue is a great example of why the mantra of live and let live no longer works with the left, right? We could say, oh, I don't care what you do in your personal life, but unfortunately we are dealing with left-wing activists who are authoritarian and have no problem pushing their values onto you. You personally may not care how Leah Thomas chooses to identify, but we have activists now who are trying to legislate pronoun usage, meaning you could be, you know, penalized if you don't want to refer to Leah Thomas as a she. There are activists who are pushing to have Leah Thomases in your locker rooms or even your little sister's locker rooms. And I mean, we are living in an era where we have libs of TikTok. I hope you all follow that account on Twitter. We see the type of activism that is going on in schools, indoctrinating young children. So we cannot live and let live when the other side is determined to steamroll over every value we hold dear. So again, this is just another reason why we need to be active and proactive. And frankly, if more of us would voice our opinions and not be bullied into silence, we would see that, I mean, really, the radical left is like 5 people. They're just very loud and very annoying.
They're actually trying to go after your kids now, right? I mean, if you stand up at a school board meeting, you're labeled a domestic terrorist because you want to make sure that your daughter is allowed to use the women's bathroom and like a man's not going to come in. And it's gone so far now that you are seeing regular people stand up. I mean, what happened in Virginia with Youngkin's victory, for example, was like the clearest cut indication that the left has gone too far for people who are traditionally apolitical and just want to be left alone, because now they're even standing up and fighting back and saying, enough is enough, we're not going to take it anymore. And yeah, we're going to organize, we're going to vote, we're going to show up and make our voices heard, because this craziness is like so far beyond the pale that it's too much even for us.
And I think Lauren brought up a great point, is that we were originally told that, you know, we just need to let people live their lives and do what they want and just stay out of their business. Okay, we were fine with that. But now now that we're having biological males taking over women's sports. I don't know if you guys saw this news story. It was, I think, last month or just a couple weeks ago. A young kid, I think a middle schooler, right? You might know the story better than me, Amber, but I just came to mind. He got in trouble because he referred to his classmate by the wrong pronoun. And so his mom had to get involved. And so now they're having to deal with the schools and everything else. So that's actually affecting our lives.
No, you're absolutely right, and I love what Amber said, that the right did not start the culture war. It was absolutely something that the left did. In terms of live and let live, there's nothing live and let live about compelling speech of a middle schooler, which I'm sure the middle schooler, frankly, was in the right in what pronouns, he or she was using. But this also brings to mind pride parades right now, right? We were told by LGBT activists, who I do differentiate from LGBT people, that, we just want the same rights. We don't want to shove anything in your face. Look at a pride parade now and try to tell me that they're not shoving all manner of things in our faces, because they definitely are. And I think that's so representative of what left-wing ideology has become. It's in your face, you can't escape it, and you must look no matter how much you oppose it.
There was actually a fatherhood magazine this week that said that you should take your kids to Pride Parade. You just have to warn them that they're going to see naked people. Is that not grooming? Like, come on. And then I don't know if you guys are familiar with the case of Jeff Younger. He's from Texas. He actually lost custody of his son because his ex-wife had convinced a pediatrician that the son was actually a daughter named Luna. And the dad said, Jeff Younger said, I have my son James all the time. He never asked to wear dresses. He never asked to present as a girl. He didn't come up with the name Luna. His mom has brainwashed him. And the court said, too bad, this pediatrician has signed off on it, and if you don't refer to your son as your daughter Luna, then you're essentially abusing that child and you don't get to have custody of him. So, I mean, that's really, they're taking kids away over this now.
I'm glad that you brought that up. I've actually interviewed that dad, and I remember I was like in tears listening to him and his custody battle over his son, and the fact that he had little say in the beginning of the transition process. The mother wanted to put the kid on the hormones and everything, and the kid's like in middle school or elementary school, very young.
I think he was 7 when this started.
Yeah, and these stories are becoming more common. It's not an anomaly. It is not a one-off. These are starting to happen all the time, and it's just getting really out of control. So there needs to be people who are bold and brave, who are willing to step on the brakes on this. And I've also interviewed several young women athletes, too, who had competed against biological males in high school, and they have spoken out about the issue, and they were telling me how difficult it is to speak out because you get called horrible names, you're villainized by the media. You know how the media is, even to young kids, people, they will go after them if they step out of line and they don't like it. And so it is a time where young people need to speak out, and it's so great to have all of you here, because you guys are going to be the leaders of the political movement in the future of our country. We need bold, brave people to speak out.
I think it's important to point out as well that this transgender narrative doesn't just affect women in the sense that there are biological men, invading our spaces, taking over our sports, but there are also, unfortunately, really young, impressionable women who are being convinced that there's something wrong with them and they need to fix that by transitioning to a different gender. There was an activist pamphlet sent out by a LGBTQ activist organization a few months ago that was talking about really normal challenges that all young women go through, like feeling a bit weird about their bodies, or being a bit insecure, or feeling like maybe they don't quite fit in. And these were actually identified as examples of symptoms of gender dysphoria. That's called growing up. That's called going through puberty, right? That's called becoming an adult. Those are all normal things that we all experience, and eventually we grow out of them. And the answer to that is not to mutilate yourself or chemically castrate yourself or do all of these irreversible changes that lead so many of these children who go through the transition process to become depressed, suicidal, and all kinds of other mental health issues.
Right. What I think is so interesting about what you're saying is that it speaks to the fact that the left is essentially trying to pathologize gender as well. I don't know about you all, but I've so often heard a quote-unquote trans person describe their dysphoria, and it's pretty much, okay, so you're a girl, but you like dressing like a lumberjack. I hate to break it to you, but that's not a different gender. And this is something that was just taken as fact, at least when I was younger. If you wanted to rebel or express yourself, you listened to My Chemical Romance. I don't know if you guys are they're too young to know who that is, right? So good. But no, nowadays it's almost like, you know, we had scene kids, we had emo kids, goth kids, but now when younger people, they feel a need to belong, to rebel, to express that they feel uncomfortable in their skin, they're being pushed toward a trans ideology. And you would think in a perfect world, the medical community would be the gatekeepers of that. They would be the ones to take these kids by the hand and say, no, what you're feeling isn't wrong, it isn't bad, but it's not a different gender. It is something normal. You will grow out of it. Let us walk you through it. But unfortunately, activists have infiltrated like the field of psychology and even pediatrics as well. And so the people who are supposed to be there for these young kids, these teens who are questioning and going through a hard time, they are the ones who ultimately are contributing to potentially their infertility. Who knows what other health effects? I've seen videos of young girls as young as 15 or 16 getting mastectomies or top surgery. So, I mean, you know, I love the Libs of TikTok account where we can kind of say, oh, you know, this young adult is kind of kooky, but ultimately they've been failed by adults, right? It's the adults who have dropped the ball here by letting their own ideology, I guess, get in the way of just genuine stewardship over these younger people.
And then again, circling back to the media, they promote this. They love it. They celebrate it when they have parents allowing their kids to either go along with this whole charade, or, you know, you'll see these like fluff pieces on the drag queen kids and everything else, and they don't question it. And that's what I'm really bothered about. And they never want to, you know, present the stories or the other side. For example, there's so many stories of people who have gone through the process, whether it be the sex change surgery or the hormones, and then they regret it. You have to look hard for those stories because they're never told. And especially when it's such a serious issue like this, we should hear both sides and fully understand it as it's become such a big part of our national conversation. Now, I have a question for the audience, actually two questions. Number one, how many of you want to pursue a career in journalism? Wow, not very many people. I'm kind of surprised.
I don't blame you.
How many of you trust the media? What about conservative media? What about, like, do you trust Daily Caller reporters and us up here? Daily Wire, Spectator. Thank you. That's interesting. You know, it is kind of sad to see only a few of you raising your hand to be interested in journalism. And the thing is that we need more people getting involved, right? Like I said, when I started out in journalism, I didn't start out to pick a side. I started out because I wanted to tell the truth and report on stories and learn more about my community and my country and share those stories. But I've been forced to pick a side, and I couldn't not speak out anymore. And I could see the liberal indoctrination, the bias happening in the newsrooms back when I was younger. It's gotten so much worse. So now I picked a side. I'm conservative. I don't lie about it. Everyone who's watched my shows or reads my articles, they know where I stand. But I'm very honest, and I look through the information. I think that's the same thing with Amber. You have been working in journalism for so long, and you are conservative.
Yeah, I mean, I've never hidden the fact that I'm a conservative, even when I think it's possible to approach a story with a viewpoint and still deliver a fact-based report, right? Like, I think that's totally possible. And I've noticed, like, people tend to hate CNN way more than they hate MSNBC, because MSNBC is super kooky and wacky, but they also don't really lie to you, right? We know the people on MSNBC are progressive. We know that they are liberal. When you watch CNN, they are always on their little soapbox talking about how they're like the last real news channel and they're all objective. And it turns out people don't like being lied to, especially when the lies are super obvious, because that also means that they think that we're stupid. And so I've found, like, I much prefer watching MSNBC over CNN just because I at least know what I'm getting and I don't feel like I'm being belittled or condescended to by them.
Wait, you don't like to watch CNN and have Don Lemon tell you all day long that you're a racist?
Well, I'm even more hardcore than you. My favorite news source, and I mean this unironically, I'm probably their #1 viewer, Young Turks. Oh my goodness, that is entertainment. Nothing gets me going like a Jenger Anna meltdown. But no, I agree. The fact that they're at least upfront with their bias bias, I can respect that more than someone who is pretending to be neutral while really pushing an agenda. And when it comes to the issue of like women and gender specifically, I feel like there are so many liberal women in cities and in echo chambers who only have liberal friends, they only watch liberal media, so they genuinely believe that they encapsulate womanhood, that like to be a woman is to be progressive, is to be out there at the Women's March, being pro-choice up until date of birth, maybe even a little after if you're in California. And that's why it's so amazing to see these outspoken conservative women voices at least letting them know that no, there's another way to be a woman.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of guilt among white, rich, liberal women as well. I call them the liberal wine moms. And you can kind of tell, like, they feel like they're apologizing for something, right? Like, they have to support these pet projects of the progressives to sort of, like, say sorry for existing. It's kind of the same thing you see with white liberal men with, like, the whole white privilege and toxic masculinity debate. And they're like, I'm a feminist. And you're like, no, you're a weirdo. But that's kind of what I think the liberal women do too.
And they take it out on their kids a lot. I've seen far too many videos of, like you said, these white liberal progressive mothers essentially publicly shaming their kids, saying, okay, like chastise yourself for being white, like, or on the flip side of that, indulging in this other gender, saying, oh, but look how special, like we are marginalized because my son identifies as otherkin, so therefore I'm not like the other white progressive moms. And it's very transparent. It's a modern form of attention seeking.
So we're basically out of time, and there was a million other things that we wanted to cover. But just to wrap things up, you guys already don't trust the media. I don't blame you. We've learned a lot over the past few years of how unfair the media has been to conservatives. And so I'm sure so many of you have different news outlets that you go to, like the ones we mentioned, Daily Wire, Daily Caller, all of the good ones. And a lot of the influencers at Turning Point, they have a perspective and they share the news as well, and that's a good source. So again, I'm disappointed that not more of you want to get into journalism, but you're still young, so there's still time because we need some fighters out there. Wanted to thank you for being here, and again, keep fighting the good fight.
Good afternoon, YWLS. How are you guys doing? It's been a great day, I think, so far. My name is Carly Tomaine. I'm the Director of Youth Leadership Schools at Leadership Institute, and I just want to take a quick couple minutes to give you guys some opportunities from Leadership Institute. So first and foremost, I would love to know, what are you guys doing for the 4th of July? Anyone have plans yet? Maybe some of you guys? Okay, well, I think there's no better place to spend the 4th of July than in our nation's capital. So I would like to make it as easy as possible for you guys to get there this year. So we are hosting a National Youth Leadership School at our headquarters at Leadership Institute. And what I'm doing is I'm offering scholarships to that. Scholarships are going to cover your flight, hotel, and meals for the weekend. But because it's the 4th of July, I thought, why not give you guys an extra night in the hotel to actually spend the 4th of July in DC? How's that sound? Yeah, sounds awesome. So if you are interested in attending the boot camp of politics, please feel free to come to our booth, sign up with the QR code, or you guys could go to leadershipinstitute.org/YLSapply. But those of you that are college students, I want to give you an opportunity as well. So current college students, raise your hands. Okay, fantastic. Anyone campus activists? Love campus activism? Okay, well, if you like to be active on campus, if you're active at your university already, you can become a Leadership Institute campus ambassador, and you can get rewarded for all the activism that you're doing. So when you get back to school next semester, you can start getting rewarded really right now for all of that activism, which is fantastic. And I know we were talking, I saw a few hands, but my people interested in journalism or communications, I know there was a couple of you guys. So if you like to write, you guys should absolutely check out Campus Reform. Campus Reform is Leadership Institute's media arm, and we work to expose liberal bias on college campuses. We know how crazy that can be, so if you want to help expose that, you can actually get paid to send in tips, write stories, and even make YouTube videos. So you should absolutely come talk to Kate at our table about working at Campus Reform. But then last opportunity is for my graduates. Anyone a recent grad? Yeah, congratulations, you made it through your university without becoming a leftist, so probably biggest accomplishment yet. But if you are interested, we are hiring field representatives for Leadership Institute for the 2022-2023 school year. And you can make up to $46,000 being a field rep. And if you guys hate that liberal bias that exists at your university or at other universities, and you want to preserve those freedoms for our up-and-coming students, you absolutely need to become a field rep. So again, check us out. Our booth is in the corner of the exhibit hall. If I can ever be a resource to you, please find me, get my contact info, but enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks so much, guys.
Much of what my colleagues have said has focused on the heaping pile of hot garbage that this reconciliation bill is. You can call it a number of things: Build Back Broke, Build Back BS, but it doesn't matter what you call it because it is still absolutely.
Man, they should have kept that going. I like that. Okay, so y'all are gonna have to forgive me right out the gate. I got off the airplane a few hours ago. I opened up my suitcase. No high heels, but I remembered the Spanx. So I figured, you know, I'm with my girls, so they're gonna be cool about it. Well, how are you guys doing? Come on. This is TPUSA. How are we doing? Nice. I am so excited to be back here with you guys. This is an amazing, amazing weekend with amazing speakers. But the most amazing part about everything that happens here at this event, it's you guys. I tell you, I get so pumped up meeting you guys, hearing your stories, because let me tell you, Nancy Pelosi, she doesn't clap for me when I walk in the room. But you guys do, so this is progress. This is good for me, yeah. So normally I come out here and I talk for a really long time, and pretty soon I'm sick of the own sound of my voice, so I'm going to speak for a little bit, but then I want to open it up for a Q&A. Are you guys good with that? Lord, we're going to have to get better at this. Are we ready for a good time today? All right. Woo! Okay. So, I don't know how many of you in this room know my story. I know a few of you do, but I just want to tell you a little bit about my life so you know where I'm coming from. I'm the daughter of a single mom. I grew up on a cattle ranch in Colorado. I was a 4-H'er. Oh, okay. All right. We got some Colorado people here. Colorado conservatives are few and far between these days, so, woo. We need to get you guys some extra, like, ballistic vests and stuff for when you go back. What about the 4-H'ers and FFA? Yes. Okay, so we got some cowgirls in here. Y'all, if we are going to take our country back, it is a fact. We need more cowboys, but more than that, we need a whole heck of a lot more cowgirls. Can I get an amen? Yes. All right, so I grew up rodeoing, barrel queen, rodeo queen. I can absolutely do the wave. It is a skill. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to college, first in my family to go to college, and it's 1 month before I graduate, and we find out that our family is losing everything. the government, Obama's administration, they were taking our cattle ranch. And we ended up being homeless for months. And at that point in time in my life, the economy wasn't good. My mom was depressed. We were living in an extended stay motel where people were doing drugs and all kinds of crazy stuff. And my whole life plan was basically imploding. And instead of graduating and going out and taking over the family business and building the life that I had always envisioned for myself, I took a step back, started doing some research about what all was going wrong in our country and how somehow, even though we had done everything right, we were still being punished by a government that was supposed to represent us. And so I found out that this program, this bill, it was about an 1,800-page bill. Both Republicans and Democrats in Washington had not even bothered to read this bill, but yet they passed this bill that was designed to push people out of their homes. 7 million families lost their homes under this bill. And that was when I got very angry, and I decided I wasn't going to take it anymore because I've got a big mouth and some pretty broad shoulders. Yeah, it's all right. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do something about this. I didn't know what the heck I was going to do, but I knew something wasn't right, so I decided to get involved. I packed up my little Nissan Maxima, drove across, yeah, that's right. I packed it filled with every piece of clothing that I owned. I literally had clothes busting out the trunk and fishing rods out the back window because I'm like, I'm going to Florida. Hey. And I showed up and started working for a campaign that people said was never going to be successful. They said, there's no way that you can win this race. And I was working at that time for a guy who had no experience in politics, but he had the same fire in the belly that I did to make government better, more responsive, accountable, transparent. And I didn't care what everyone else said. I said, we're going to do this. And by the grace of God and with a lot of hard work, we ended up winning that race by 829 votes. Yeah. And so life began for me. I started a career as a congressional staffer. I was the youngest chief of staff in Washington. And then one day in Publix, y'all know what Publix is? Everybody who just cheered knows what a pub sub is. It is the greatest sandwich on the planet. So I'm in the grocery store. I'm buying myself dinner so I can go back to work, and that's when I meet this very cocky but very sexy firefighter. And he was kind of a jerk. And I thought I was all big and bad. I like slipped him my business card like I'm a big deal. So you don't want to mess with me. And we started dating, and God bless that man, he never gave up. I put him through the ringer. He was putting up campaign signs. He was running errands, knocking on doors, making phone calls. He was doing everything, and I could not get rid of this guy. He was like a bad rash. Yeah. But he hung in there, and he really, really wanted to make a go of a crazy life with me. So I married this guy, and today I'm proud to be the wife of a firefighter, SWAT medic. Yes. I mean, bless his heart, we got married in a field and partied in a barn afterwards. But it's life. Right? It's these crazy twists and turns that you can never predict. If you told me 10 years ago when I was homeless that I would be married to a firefighter and living in Florida, and then, oh my gosh, you are the youngest Republican woman elected to Congress? What? Y'all. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen around the world, but I'll tell you one place it does happen: in America. In America. Because this country is based on equal opportunity, not equal outcome, right? Yeah. I mean, you guys have been hearing the issues. You guys are getting up to speed on the issues. You're plugged in. You know what's going on. We could talk about the border crisis. We could talk about the fentanyl and the opioid crisis, the crime, the inflation, the fact that you got to pay $8 a gallon of gas in California, which it's California, so good luck there. Sorry to all our California people. Hang in there. We could talk about these issues, but what I really want to talk to you guys about today are two things: grit and meeting the moment. Right now, we need you guys more than ever. And within every single one of you here tonight, it's in your DNA because you are an American. You were born in this country. You are part of a very unique group of people. You enjoy being the underdog. You enjoy that scrappy pressure that sets in when you're kind of backed into a corner. And you know how you get it? It's through adversity. Think of a difficult time in your life. Maybe your parents unfortunately got divorced. Maybe you experienced a death in your family. Maybe you grew up and your family struggled to make ends meet. Maybe today you are paying your way through college. Any adversity in your life, don't look at it as a bad thing. Look at it as an opportunity to grow, to get stronger, to get grittier and scrappier, because what our country needs are scrappy, gritty girls. Yes, women. And you see everything that's happening, all these crazy things, right? You turn on the news, it's hard not to be depressed, but you turn on the news and you're like, man, I got to do something, right? Because you're not here just to listen, you're here to get involved, right? Okay. So you have everything within you to be successful. You're doing the inconvenient thing of being here. Heck, it's a lot of fun to be here, but you have friends back home, they're like, nah, I'm going to go to the beach, I'm going to go do this, right? You're here. You're doing the inconvenient thing, flying from all over the country to be here. And that's what's going to make you successful. Because if success was built on convenience, everybody would be successful. Right? It comes down to the thing of grit and hard work. And you look at what our country's facing. You look at the challenges. They're seemingly overwhelming. And I can't help but think that we have a group of young women that are built for this moment. They are built for this moment to take back our country, right? Yeah. And so meeting the moment, what does that mean? You have to constantly rely on your life experience, right? You won't ever learn this in a book. It's through getting out there and doing the difficult things and experiencing things and making mistakes and learning from them. You have to be open-minded, but more than that, you have to go after it. I was on a plane on Monday coming into Gainesville, Florida, and I get off the plane and a girl comes up behind me and she immediately throws her cell phone in my face and she starts screaming at me. I'm not even 10 feet off the airplane. And this is a liberal activist. And she starts screaming, what are you going to do to stop killing children? You hate children. You're evil. You are the worst human being on the planet. I'm going to act this out for you. So I'm off the plane. This is like a one-woman show that I'm about to do here, so bear with me. So I'm walking. I got my gator gear on, got my little strut going, and she's over here like, you are evil. You are horrible. She is on my neck. I can smell her breath. And it was not good. And in my mind, I'm thinking, count backwards from 10, because I did not want to commit physical violence. But in my mind, I was also thinking, she wants me to react. This is what the left wants. They want us to be like them. They want us to be nasty and hateful. They want us to be annoying and weird and just creepy, right? That's what they do because they want to incite a reaction out of us. But you know how we win? With grace. With grace. And as I'm walking, I kept thinking, Kat, you were homeless. You dealt with crackheads at one point in your life. You can certainly deal with another. And I just, whew. But it was that adversity that I had experienced in my life, that experience that I was leaning back on, being like, nope, I will not cave. I will not bend or break how they want me to. How many of you have experienced bullying or intimidation by a teacher, a professor, a friend because of your political beliefs? Hands up. That's what I thought. Me too. This is the real Me Too movement, by the way. I'm serious. I look back to when I was in college. I was in a Latin American politics class, and the first day of class, my Latin American politics professor, she comes out and she says, well, class, I'm here to teach you about Latin American politics. The thing you need to know is that every world conflict is the responsibility of Republican white men. Excuse me? What? And she repeated it. And I said, oh, hell, this is going to be a bad class. This is going to be a bad class for me. And it was. She not only failed every single paper that I wrote because I refused to write a paper with a liberal slant, she tried to get me kicked out of school. It went so far that I went to the university president and I showed him everything. And I said, you kicked me out of school and I'm going to the news. Right? And it was because I was able to look back on all those crazy times in my life, growing up, not having a lot of resources, fighting for scholarships, fighting for everything that I had. I wasn't about to let some crazy liberal take it away the way they want to take away our country, right? And so I think about all these moments where we have been bullied, have been intimidated, all these opportunities for the left to try to get you. This is where we as conservatives, full of grace and kindness and class, this is where we shine. This is where we are going to be the difference makers. Not just today, but as leaders of the next movement in conservative principle politics that will save this country, right? I'm running out of time because I want to answer your questions, so I want to leave you guys with this. This is not going to be easy, but this is the moment that you all were built for. 100%. And by the grace of God, and with a lot of work, we are going to take our country back. Yes. So, I know we've got some questions. How do we want to do this? I can't see in the back. Oh, right there. All right. Anybody got a question? I know this is not a shy group. We're running mics. I'm really glad I didn't just fall off the stage.
Hi, my question is, I just sort of came up with it, but there's a lot of people like calling them rhinos, Republican congressmen, senators. Now, a lot of them got elected. We have like Lindsey Graham, Crenshaw, Madison Cawthorn. Now, I think a lot of them have done some good things, but now we see them a lot of them have turned. Obviously, Madison Cawthorn and that whole thing. But I was just wondering, when it comes to
that whole thing.
Yeah, a really big thing. When it comes to campaigning, it's easy for candidates to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and then they get elected and do the complete opposite. You see that with a lot of Republicans who like Trump and then got elected and voted to impeach him. So how do we take your word for it?
That's a great question. What's your name?
Ivana Lovelace.
Ivana, I like that. It's a really pretty name. I like your earrings too. They're very cool. I like them. So how do we trust our politicians? Well, you can't. No, seriously, you cannot. That's why you being here is so important. That is why an engaged, motivated electorate is so important. I go on Facebook Live all the time and I say, hey, this crazy bill has popped up. It takes 5 minutes. Call your member of Congress and tell them yes or no you want them to vote which way on it. People actually do that. I have never seen more members of Congress scared for their life. They really are a bunch of chicken craps up there. I'm telling you, there is nothing more terrifying to a politician than a group of constituents that are educated and motivated and involved. Absolutely petrified. They get more than 10 phone calls in their office. They're like, oh my gosh, what do we do? Shut the phone lines off, close the blinds, oh my gosh. I'm grown men, scared. It's crazy. This is why I love the Moms for Liberty movement. It's a bunch of mama bears that just got like fired up. They're like, yeah, no. We have to hold them accountable. Because today, politicians, so many of them are not taking an oath to the Constitution. They're taking an oath to a political party, to an agenda. They're forgetting that they put their hand on the Bible and they swear an oath. We are responsible for holding them accountable. That is why what we do, and I'm saying that deliberately, that is why it is so important. That is how we hold them accountable. That is how we make sure we know who they are. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Diana, and I'm really inspired by you. I'm a recent graduate from Rowan University, New Jersey.
Wow, New Jersey.
It's half and half. Luckily, where I go to school is very red. And my question is that I want to start my career in politics. How do you balance politics and your faith?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, God bless you for one, being in New Jersey, and two, you want a career in politics, right? Yes. This is what I tell everyone who wants a career in politics. Don't get a degree in poli-sci. Everybody, like half this room probably was like, oh man. The reason I tell you that is because I don't hire people with poli-sci degrees. A lot of members don't. And the reason why is politics is the business of everything else. I hire engineers, economists, biologists, chemists. That is really why I encourage young people, don't get a poli-sci degree, go get a degree in business, economics, finance, engineering, anything outside of politics, because you will be better in politics for it. But since you've already graduated, we can still fix this. We can fix it.
Studies major.
You what?
I'm a law and justice studies major.
Love
and
that.
A student athlete at track and field.
Nice. I love that. Very cool. I will not challenge you to a sprint across this. Because one, I'm in Spanx, and two, I have little T-Rex arms, and it wouldn't be cute. But you want to get involved in politics? The number one thing I tell people, get an internship. Join a campaign. There is no substitute for that hands-on work, and I know it is gritty, but let me tell you, when I took on my first campaign, I was the event coordinator, the door knocker, the parade float designer, the toilet bowl cleaner. I did everything, and I didn't complain, and I did not care about the title. I did what had to be done, and that's the mentality you need to have, because when you become a value add to a campaign, to an organization, sky's the limit for you. Get involved and be willing to take on any task. That would be my advice. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jenna. I'm from Charlotte. I own my own wedding planning business.
Wow, this front row. I like it.
After coming here, I've decided that I want to not necessarily include my politics in my business, but my Christianity more in my business.
Yeah.
And I want to create an organization that donates to charities. So the idea is to have a bunch of wedding vendors come together, and the ticket sales would go towards a charity of our choice.
Love that.
So it's probably going to be hard for me to campaign to people that are like closeted, conservative Christians. So what advice do you give me to campaign to those businesses to kind of get them to come forward and outwardly express, their beliefs and try to be more prominent in the Charlotte area?
That is a wonderful question, and then you actually reminded me of something I wanted to share with you guys. So you touched on your values, right? I can't tell you how many times I meet people, especially in Washington, in an elected official capacity. They don't know their values. They're a little shaky in them. And by extension, they don't know their value. So they're kind of just aimlessly wandering, just, kind of checking the box through life, just kind of going through the day and floating. You have a very, very dedicated path. I can see that. And what I would encourage you to do is to really sit down. When you're making out your business plan, write down your values. Actually put pen to paper. I'm a big list person. I'm a big journal person. When you put pen to paper, you really get clarity in who you are, in your priorities and your values. And at the very top, if you say, I want faith, my faith, at the very top of guiding whatever I do every single day, you need to make that number one. And that I will follow Christ, and I will do his will, and I will give glory to God. You need to really, really make sure that's pen to paper. And everything that comes after, it will follow. And when you talk to people, be open. That's the thing that I love about our movement, the conservative movement. We are not a hateful movement. We are open and warm and loving and kind, and we love people for who they are. And when we show them that, when we openly communicate that, all of a sudden minds start to change, right? They think we're a bunch of crazy lizards or something. So be honest, be open about it. And that's when you're gonna find like-minded people being pulled to you and gravitating towards you. That's how you can really take your business and match it with your values and your politics. And I love that idea. Good luck.
This is the last question.
Last question, I'm so sorry.
All the pressure's on me then, I guess. I'm Tia. I'm from the United States. I grew up traveling, but mainly from Florida.
Woo! Sorry, I'm a Florida person.
Yeah, Florida is amazing. But my main question is, how do you deal when family members judge you for your politics? Because you don't want to cut them off because you love them, but you also don't say that to me type thing.
No, absolutely. That's a great question. How do you deal with family members that don't share your viewpoints or your politics? This is in every family. You asked a question that will apply to literally every single person here. So great question. And also you're from Florida, so, go Gators. Oh, no, we're going to say go Gators. Don't ruin it for me now. Now listen, I'm not suggesting that if you go to your aunt and uncle's house and they are extraordinarily liberal that you don't, I'm not saying bring a bottle of Trump wine or anything. I may have done that. What I am saying is be willing to sit down and have that conversation. Approach it from, again, that place of kindness and non-judgment. That's very, very important. But I'll use an example from my own life. I have an aunt that I love dearly. She thinks that the Green Party is too conservative, okay? She is so far out there, it's crazy with her politics, right? But we have such an incredibly strong connection because we see beyond the politics. And at the end of the day, and we've had these conversations, she's like, I wish you would just stop with this nonsense. It's anti-woman. I said, no, the conservative movement is about empowering women. We're about empowering women. And let me tell you why. And when I talk to her, we won't ever agree on the politics, right? On the way to get there. The thing we do agree on, and this is what's crazy. If you can find the end game, right? If we all say we want our children to be safe in schools, no one's going to say anything against that, right? It's how we get there that everyone is having a problem with. If you can say, listen, we may not agree on how we solve this problem, but we know that this is what we want the end result to be, can we just agree that we're both trying our best and that at the end of the day we're family and you can't pick your family? And so wouldn't it be nice if we could have Christmas and Thanksgiving and all the other holidays without family shouting and gathering? And I know it sounds crazy, but just try to listen. Because they're expecting you to yell and shut them down and just over-talk them. Be the thing that they don't expect. That's how I would do it. Yeah. Thank you. Ladies, my time is up, but I do want to say that I will be visiting with several of you in I think about an hour and a half out back, or not out back, out in the hallway. Whoa, that got very Joe Biden-y. Whoa, sorry. That must be the airplane. No, but thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being in the fight. Never, ever lose your grace. Never, ever forget where you get your grit from. But most importantly, never, ever, ever give up. Thank you, guys. God bless America.
I'm so nice to myself. 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 I'm so nice to myself.
No other surgical procedure has caused more controversy and division than abortion.
I think this is the battleground culture issue in America today. Their view is that there is only one way to be a woman in this society.
More than ever, it's important for everyone to know where they stand on abortion and why. In 2019 alone, state abortion bills were in direct opposition to one another.
All the power in Albany now in the hands of Democrats, moving for quick passage of an abortion rights bill. Provisions in the bill include dropping most restrictions on abortions after 24 weeks, allowing midwives and nurse practitioners to perform abortions, and ending criminal charges for harming children in the womb.
We're saying here in New York, women's lives matter.
The Alabama bill essentially outlaws abortion from the moment a woman becomes pregnant. The only exception would be if her life was in danger.
The whole point of this law is to establish that a fetus is a person with rights. Now, that is a bold interpretation of human development.
This isn't about protecting life. If that's what it was about, then Republicans would invest money in maternity care, parental leave, universal pre-K, or any number of policies that would actually help families raise children. What it's really about is depriving women of their basic human rights.
We often hear about the abortion issue in regards to politics.
I strongly support Roe v. Wade, which guarantees a constitutional right to a woman.
But abortion is more than a mere topic of news and debates. It is a real occurrence in the lives of people around us, in our schools, workplaces, even churches. In Hollywood and popular American culture, pro-choice is considered ethically good.
And I wouldn't have been able to do this without employing a woman's right to choose.
Identify as pro-choice because they've picked up on the idea that that's the right side to be.
For many, the issue is not so black and white. Many Americans remain in the middle, holding personal beliefs, yet not wanting to impose them onto others.
So it's not a sin in your church to have an abortion?
That's the kind of conversation we would have finding out your story, where you're from. People have to live to their own convictions, and I think if I have to tell you...
But before we claim to be only personally pro-life, shouldn't our first responsibility be to understand the pro-life case? Or should we be content to form our beliefs simply from what is said in the media?
We at Planned Parenthood do more to prevent unintended pregnancies than any other organization.
There's a whole laundry list of things that we know reduce the need for abortions in America. Let's start with sex education and contraception.
If you want fewer abortions, you should love birth control. You should be filling Pez dispensers with birth control pills. You should be giving condoms out to trick-or-treaters and IUD earrings out as hostess gifts. Birth control should be your favorite thing in the whole world.
The right makes it sound like the left just wants to kill babies, and the left makes it sound like the right just hates women.
You actually do not care about women. You take it away politically.
A baby dies in an abortion. Do you realize that? Are you ignoring that fact? That's a reality. This is a human life that is being extinguished.
I want the world to know that women in my situation need support.
Finding that pregnancy center was the only person I had to support me at that time.
I believe that being pro-life is the most progressive value that we can have.
She's got to know when she takes that pregnancy test that her church is not going to try to treat her like the Pharisees tried to treat the woman caught in adultery.
As a church, we can't just vote pro-life. We have to be pro-love. Pro-love is an action. It's going beyond being just pro-birth. It's about pro-whole life.
How is it that we can trust an organization for whom abortion is such an important part of their business model to simultaneously effectively prevent pregnancy and prevent abortion?
When you're an obstetrician gynecologist and you're pro-choice, you have to decide whether you're actually going to do those abortions.
You said, what about a woman's right to choose? And my answer is to choose what? What are they choosing? What does an abortion do?
Hey, it's TPUSA contributor John Root. We are so excited to be with y'all at YWLS as we continue fighting the culture war. Now is the time to get off the couch and stand for what's right. If you want to help us win, consider donating by texting DONATE to 71776. Again, that's DONATE to 71776. We appreciate your support.
So I'm here with Emma Jo Morris of Breitbart and Carol Markowitz from the New York Post. I'm Libby Emmons with the Post Millennial. And we're going to talk about how to exist as a conservative in liberal American cities. A lot of that has to do with values. So I just wanted to start by asking, how do you find your community in a place where most people don't share your values?
Yeah, so I'll start off. So I think it's really important that I know you can stay true to yourself in a liberal city, and you can be conservative, and you can find conservative friends. But I think it's really important to find people who support you, and people who you don't have to not be yourself around. I grew up in New York. I was born in the Soviet Union, lived in Brooklyn my whole life, and my community of ex-Soviets in New York are quite conservative. So I always felt like I didn't have to please the liberals around me because I had my people and they were conservative and it was fine. But that's not an obvious answer for a lot of you. You can't suddenly find a community of conservatives who you happen to grow up around. So I would say that you have to initiate finding that community, whether it's through your church or synagogue or mosque. And you have to kind of form relationships that will take you past the friendship point. Friends are great, but you need to have a support system. And for me, I lead with the fact that I'm a conservative. I'll say, like, hi, I'm Carol, and then like 2 minutes later, I'll find a way to work in that I'm a conservative because I don't want people to be surprised or, feel that they were somehow tricked into being my friend. So that might be a strategy of just, kind of saying it up front and then seeing who's still left after you make that pronouncement.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously agree with everything Carol has said, but I also find, I live in Williamsburg in Brooklyn, and before that I grew up in Montreal, Canada, which is even more liberal than New York, if you can imagine it. And I've had a pretty flashy career. I worked at the New York Post with Carol before Breitbart. I broke the laptop from hell there. Everybody knows that that's what I do and what I did. Thanks. And it's impossible to get around it, and it's also very difficult at the same time to have people that are going to align with you politically, even among conservatives, but values aren't necessarily always politics. And And you can have a friendship based on values and people who are supportive of your values and of you and of your politics who don't necessarily share them. And so that being said, it's like, yes, a support system is important with people who are aligned with you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're Republicans. And I think that it's very isolating to base friendships only on politics. Values, yes. Politics, no. And I think it's important to draw a distinction.
I actually recently had an experience of falling in with a group of people in New York, where I also live in Brooklyn, although I live in Nicole Malliotakis' district, so it's definitely different from Williamsburg. But I recently found a group of friends who have a lot of different political views than mine, but we all share a lot of common values, like, you know, being free speech oriented and being very pro Bill of Rights. So even if we disagree politically, we do have the aligned values, which really helps. Emma Jo, you were talking about how this works in your favor, though, in a professional sense, being a conservative in a liberal city. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I've had tremendous success by capitalizing off of how few of me there are in my city. So before I worked in the New York Post, I worked at Fox News. I was associate producer of Hannity for 4 years. And that was my first job out of university. And after that, I became deputy politics editor at the Post when I was 26. That was a job that I ended up getting that was way outside of my experience. And the reason was because I was a conservative in a talent pool that had so few. I think I was the only conservative that was applying for a job editing news at a conservative outlet, which you would never think, because you look at the Post and it's clearly very conservative, and Fox obviously clearly very conservative, but it's very hard to hire people who are aligned with the values of your company in a city like New York, or in any liberal city you'll see this. So for me, it was like, you know, it's easier socially maybe to front like you're like everybody around you. But really, for yourself, if you can stay true to yourself and actually find a way to shine in that, you can have tremendous opportunity in being so unique. In a place like New York or in Miami or in LA, it's like there's always a place where, if you're not in media, let's say, but you know, there's always a place where your values will come into play. And if you have very rare values in the place where you're located, you can get the job you want, you can charge the amount that you want, because it's going to be like, they're not going to find another one.
So we're in a room full of conservative women, a lot of whom speak their minds on college campuses, for which you should all be lauded. And I think we've all had the experience up here of hearing secretly from people who share your views, but they don't want to back you publicly. And I'm sure that a lot of women have had that experience too. You know, people come into your DMs and they're just like, I agree with you, but I can't say anything. How do you get those people to have the courage and convictions to speak their minds and to hold their values publicly?
So I have mixed feelings about people like that, because they're kind of leaving us out there to fight the battles that they want won but aren't brave enough to fight themselves. So while I enjoy getting emails like, oh, I lived in a very left neighborhood in New York, and I loved getting emails like, oh, I live in your neighborhood, I saw you, I'm such a big fan, and I'm just finding out that there were other conservatives. But the ones that I think don't speak out, it's a kind of a problem for me. And, you know, it's funny because I've moved people to the conservative position throughout my life. My husband is conservative. He was not always a conservative. You can change them, ladies, you really can. In fact, I've changed, you know, several boyfriends along the way. And I have altered opinions, had friends alter their opinions based on our conversations. So I don't think it's a lost cause when you meet somebody who is on the left and you don't agree, and they want to talk politics with you. I feel like that's a great opportunity to teach people, you know, something about conservatism. But the people that are too afraid, I had to leave New York this year because New Yorkers were not fighting back the way that I expected them to about the COVID restrictions. And I have 3 kids. I had kind of reached the end of the road of waiting for my New Yorkers to wake up and say, I'm not standing for this anymore. So like all the emails and all the messages of, oh, me too, I agree with you, I'm done with that. And I've mentioned this on Twitter, but I've had like well-known liberals reach out to me and say, oh, I agree with you about masking kids in school, but I can't say anything. Like, I'm sorry. Yes, you can. You can. You can grow a spine and you could say something. So.
I agree with you, but I also think that growing up conservative in a liberal city, which all of us have, is you become hardened in a certain way, and you get used to kind of having to, forge your own path in ways that people who fit in more politically in their greater society don't have that muscle. And, I work at Breitbart now, and Andrew Breitbart was always a huge influence for me and a huge inspiration to me, and he had a really important quote that has lived on for years since he's died, which is, walk toward the fire. And that was his big thing, is walk toward the fire. And as people watch you do that, and as people see that and agree with you, they'll start to see that they can do it too. So I agree with you in the sense that, yes, there's, especially for people like us, there's like not so much patience for the people who are like, yes, all worried about it, but also, people come around in their own time, and they realize as they see you and people like us doing that they can do it too, but there's a lag. And I also think that it's important to engage those people. Like I have a friend who's progressive, she thinks, default. And we were talking about, the trans sports stuff and trans girls in girls' schools, and she was saying, like, I kind of agree with you, I do agree with you, but she was like, sometimes I bring this up with my other friends who are also progressive, and I feel extremely judged, and I feel like they're not going to want to engage with me, and they're maybe not even going to want to be my friend. They're going to judge me and whatever. And so I said, like, what do you think? And what's outrageous, do you think, or what do they find outrageous about what you think? And when you sit with them and take time to really unpack what their beliefs are, and they realize themselves that, wait, no, this isn't hateful. This isn't coming from a malicious place. This isn't coming from a mean place. What I'm saying is sensible. They start to feel more comfortable after having worked it out with somebody who's safe to articulate themselves better to the people around them. So it's kind of like, you have to try and hold their hand a little bit. I think there's something to be said for being patient and being supportive. The same way we want these people to be supportive of us is to be supportive of them on their path of understanding the world around them, which is extremely complicated, as we all know, and so, yeah, of course, your point is true, and especially with children, the circumstance that, you went on a crusade about was so it was abuse. It was child abuse, what we were talking about, and we were watching people stand by in New York City for total child abuse.
Yeah, still today, right now, they're still masking 2- to 4-year-olds.
Yeah, and it's disgusting. It's sickening to watch. But for maybe things that are different, various political issues, I think it's worthwhile to engage and to have that conversation and hash out what you each really think, and have that debate. And it encourages confidence in the person you're speaking with too, to maybe next time they're with that group of friends that's judging them to say, no, like, this is what I think, and this is where I'm coming from, and it's not exphobia, whatever, it's just sincere.
I just want to ask one other question, and then I think we could open it up for questions. How important is faith, and have you had trouble finding a faith community that shares your values in liberal places in New York? I know that I was shocked when I was dealing with pro-choice people at my Catholic church, and I was just like, what are you talking about, you guys?
Yeah.
This makes no sense.
So I've written about this, but I'm Jewish, and we belonged in Park Slope, Brooklyn, to a really left synagogue, and it didn't matter for a long time. It didn't matter, it didn't matter, it didn't matter, and then one day it mattered a lot. And I wish that I had realized that it would matter one day. So my activist rabbi would protest all kinds of things, and then Jews started getting beat up in the streets of Brooklyn, and suddenly the protests came to an end. There were no more protests. And she didn't say anything about it for a year. And I wish that I had realized that the leftism that I had sort of thought, oh, it doesn't matter that much. It's a really nice, happy place with really nice people. It doesn't matter that they're leftist. It will matter. And so why I always say, like, find your community and make sure that you can be with that community long term. You can't overlook things. You can't just be like, oh, it's okay that they're, believing things that I deeply disagree with, because it will come to a head, and you will have to face, the choice of leaving that community eventually.
I would never, personally, I can't associate with, I'm Jewish also, I can't associate with a synagogue that has any political advocacy at all. It's just and I mean to the right or the left. I don't want to go to a synagogue that's preaching conservative.
Where is that synagogue? That synagogue does not exist.
I don't want to go to the Tulsa, Oklahoma synagogue that's preaching Republican No, but it's just, for me, faith should be totally separated from politics. I don't want to go there. I'm going there to worship God. And I would imagine that if you meet people at a synagogue like that, you know that they're there for the same reason as you, and it diffuses a lot of that, because like you said, it doesn't matter until it does, and that's inevitably going to happen, and you don't want to build a community at a church or a synagogue where it'll blow up eventually. So for me, high priority, no politics.
Libby, did you end up leaving your church, or what ended up happening?
I'm still at my church. I ended up deciding to teach catechism there, and try and bring my views and my views of faith to basically the kids at my church who are going through their confirmation years. And mostly what I found that I talked to them about, in addition to the stories from the Gospels and how to live out Jesus' teaching in their lives, was about how to use the Gospels as a way to help you make decisions and to help you at least understand what the right decisions are, even if you then decide to make the wrong decisions. It's almost more important to know what the right decisions are and why they're right and why those values matter than it is to always make the right decision, I think. Interestingly, I think it's important to always know what you believe, why you believe it, to constantly be examining and trying to understand your views and your ideas. One thing I do find in a liberal city, in New York specifically, is that I'm often challenged to give a deeper expression of what I believe and why, because I'm constantly challenged by that. My mom is remarkably leftist. We disagree on almost everything. Yet the other day, she told me she had been considering going back to the church, and this after years of my not say, I never say to her, Mom, you should try faith, but I try and live my faith in expression to her. And I was very moved when she said that she was even considering it. She's been an atheist my whole life, so that was really remarkable. Does anybody have questions? We could open it up to questions if you want. If not, we could totally keep talking.
Got one right here. Hi, my name is Jasmine. I'm from Austin, Texas. And I just had a question for y'all. What do you do when you have a professor and you write an essay and you know that professor is pushing a certain narrative and you don't agree with it at all? Then you end up getting a bad grade, and you just want to be successful in school, but you can't because of a lot of professors in general. What should someone do in that situation?
Go ahead. It's such a tough situation to be in because, in college, I absolutely wrote what the professor wanted to hear. Like, I found an essay I wrote about how the modern family no longer, like the family structure no longer matters. And I was a full-on conservative. I knew that I was writing nonsense to make the professor happy. But then in grad school, I fought, and the professors docked my grades for it, and it was, you know, it's a really tough balance. It's really, if you want to forge the fight, I think you have a lot of organizations that would stand behind you. I wish I had known about them in college. I would have maybe put up more of a battle. So I would say your options are, you know, get the grade and write whatever because the professor's not changing their mind, or forge the fight, and it really is up to you.
I would say that a great way to handle that, and the way that I handled that in grad school, was to understand the perspective of the professor better than the professor does, which you can do because you're a smart person, and then fight the battle against what they believe from the perspective that they believe it from, because you can undermine the logic and the reason of, you know, pretty much any of these ridiculous leftist views, and you can take them down. And I would give that a try. And I would fight, personally, I would fight it. I would fight it as hard as possible.
Are you planning on going to grad school? Because if not, what?
No, I'm personally not. Like, at the most, probably just like a bachelor's degree or something. But what really motivated me to ask this is that my brother is taking early college classes in high school, and it's his second day of class, and he already ran into that at a community college.
Wow.
Of course.
Wow.
Listen, I crawled through university. I didn't bend the knee, not for 1 second. I took my bachelor's degree with my C's, talking about how human rights wouldn't exist without the United States of America. And then I went to go work at Hannity. No grad school.
Hi, my name is Faith Anna Olson, and I'm a journalism student, and I just want to say thank you guys for coming out here and talking to us, and thank you for your work. I really respect it. And I just was wondering what advice you would have as a conservative trying to go into the mess of journalism and trying to fix that mess.
How long do we have?
Write honestly and write from the heart, and always be truthful, and be careful about your biases and everybody else's, and don't give in to them. I didn't start in journalism, I started in the arts, and I've found that a lot of the things that really matter across the board. Being able to tell a strong narrative, being able to do good research, and sticking to your guns.
Yeah. It's really easy because the industry is filled with such reckless ideologues, and they're really, like, they just, I mean, choose your hoax. You know, it's filled with people who run with whatever they think will fit, and they don't really think long term, and they're very, I find the language is very, like, they're very imprecise with their language and very lackadaisical with the words that they choose. If you have a great story, you don't need to add dressing. Just be straight, be honest, be serious, and one individual who's like that does a lot. You know, if you look at the Hunter Biden reporting, there's no, like, this is the crime of the century. It's just says what the emails say. That's it. And if you just stick to the facts, stick to the story, don't bother with your political advocacy. If you want to advocate for politics, get a column, get a Substack, not for your journalism. And that just goes such a long way, and you get real respect, real street cred in the industry for being just serious.
Yeah, so I feel like this conversation is mostly about what happens when you know your values and you face adversity for them. But my question is a step before that. I don't think that we've really fully comprehended how far kids who grow up in liberal environments are removed from values. So, for example, when I grew up, the word soul was a very weird word. Like, that's something that weird people said. So when people had to try to express their whatever internal tumult, they would use words like I'm depressed or I'm anxious. So they would assign some sort of medical value to it. Another example is the way that people who grow up in liberal environments really get a sense of purpose and meaning from being part of the Democratic Party or being part of the rebellion, right? So for people who are operating in a social environment where people really do feel a strong sense of community and belonging in the liberal world, how do you deal with being an apostate?
Are you writing about this?
No.
This is fascinating. You should write about this. I don't know. This is a question that I've been looking at myself. Like, if you come from, if you have no roots, if you have no grounding, how do you come to find it? And it's almost like we have gone backwards as a culture in trying to understand who we are and where we're from. In a lot of, and it's interesting what you say about the soul having been replaced with concepts of medical conditions. I think that a place that people should start, and I don't know where they would find it, is you can start by looking to, our ancient philosophers and how they address these questions. These are questions that go back to Plato and Aristotle and continue on. And then you have to, you really have to dig. If you're starting from nothing, you have to dig, but you have to want to. And if somebody doesn't want to, they're not going to break out of that. They're not going to go look for it. But I think that's fascinating, you guys.
I think it's a great answer.
Okay. Hi. Oh, this will be the last question. Hi, my name is Claire, and I had a quick question. So earlier you had stated that you don't like when your rabbi brings politics into the synagogue. And for me, I feel like most of my conservative beliefs stem from the Bible. And I think it's important that... and I think it's important that our pastors, our rabbis, our leaders in the church talk about politics. Maybe not the whole entire sermon, but, when it comes to same-sex marriage, abortions, topics like that, I think it's important for leaders in the church to talk about. If they have people in their congregation that are kind of on the fence about what should I believe as a Christian? Should I be pro-life? Should I be pro-choice? Should I agree with same-sex marriage? And so I just wanted a little bit more on your take on that, just because I firmly believe that my pastor, he does a good job in, in his word, bringing in the word of God, but also bringing in our politics that are affecting our religion as well.
Sure. Listen, your faith is the most personal thing in your life. We're talking about values that are extremely deep, extremely personal, unique. Your community is going to be something that you choose based on what you want. I'm talking about it in the context of being in a liberal city and trying to find a place where, the politics is of the majority of the people not aligned with yours. And that's where I'm coming from with that statement. It's also where I'm coming from personally. Judaism has less political relevance than Christianity, especially in America. That's for me, and you're gonna do you, and good. This is America. And thank God, there's such big communities in these cities. You'll find a church that has political advocacy or where the pastor addresses politics in the news of the day. I live in New York. I watched Ivanka Trump's synagogue that she was a member of, that she converted in. That was her community, and I watched her rabbi write an op-ed slandering her essentially during the Kids in Cages hoax. And so I see that, and, you know, I'm not as out there as Ivanka Trump, but I don't want to build a community and then realize, as Carol said, until it, like, you know, the day that it matters, that my community has hurt me. So I prefer to stay politically neutral.
So,
but you're going to do what you want. You know, this is personal.
So I have never been to a synagogue where the rabbi had anything resembling my views, and a lot of times in Judaism, they will use the Bible to find liberal beliefs in it. They'll say, oh, look, you know, the Bible says, heal the world is a big one. It's called Tikkun Olam, heal the world. They've decided that that's a leftist tagline, that now everything that they do, oh, we're healing the world, it's, you know, it's from the Bible. And so I don't have the experience of even remotely having my place of worship support me politically in any way. So if you have that, that's incredible and good for you. I wish I had that too.
I would just like to add, you know, I've gone to Catholic churches that are conservative, and I've gone to churches that are substantially liberal, you know, within blocks of each other in the same city. For me, all political views are secondary to faith. I find that my political views are inspired by my faith and by my values. And what I would like in a church is a church that puts faith first, that leads with values, and then lets people make their own decisions. Because if you're following, you know, for example, something I've been recently reading with my son a lot is the Gospel according to Matthew. And if you're looking at Matthew, if you're looking at those Beatitudes, if you're looking at, you know, what Jesus is saying about kindness and all of these things and the way that he guides his disciples, there's no politics in there. There's just faith. There's just a strong moral system. And from that moral system, you can take the views that life is more important than death. You know, you can take the views that, you know, kindness and loving people and expressing your faith to those people is more important than telling people what to do or what to think. So for me, I don't think there's enough time in church for politics. Faith is so important, and it's so necessary for the heart, that this is where I would prefer to have, you know, my priests focus on. I think that's it, ladies.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Continues to lie. So much worse for this organization when people realize just how fraudulent they've been. The reason that she's lying and trying to squeeze out these last victim crocodile tears is because she knows the truth is coming.
Stage at YWLS. Very, very pregnant this time, which is a little bit different. 4 more weeks until baby girl is here. Very exciting, you guys. Take a seat. So much to talk about. I just did Charlie Kirk's podcast, and we had this flashback. By the way, I'm feeling absolutely great, mainly because I'm not Amber Heard, so I'm having the best time ever. Everybody should be having a good time. It's a good time if you're not Amber Heard. And it's funny because the timing of this really made Charlie and I kind of go back into a flashback. 4 years ago, I think it was, 2018 YWLS was a very trying time for Turning Point USA. It was the beginning of the hashtag #MeToo movement. It must have happened, I think, 2 days before this conference was supposed to meet, and you guys, of course, remember that it just went completely viral. Like, it was, everybody was Me-Tooing, sharing stories, and there was suddenly this pressure campaign on women to get behind this movement, and no one really paused to think about what exactly the movement was. And of course, I think the day before this conference took place, I did what I always do, and I tweeted. I just said, I don't support this movement, it's ridiculous. Like, you know, the idea that women don't lie, believe women, actually it weakens women. And we need to have a larger conversation about it. And all I can tell you is it caused so much stress and trauma on this event. In fact, Turning Point USA had several girls that quit on the spot. Because they said, how could Candace not support the Me Too movement? This means that she wants women to be raped and that she doesn't support sexual assault victims. And of course, that is not at all what I meant by it. All of the reporters who were coming in for YWLS suddenly only wanted to talk about Candace's tweet. And they wanted Charlie to denounce Candace Owens and to say how horrible it was. Because these are how these campaigns come about. It's always sort of a rush. Social media gets behind it. They create like a little fancy sticker next to the hashtag, you know, some symbol next to it. And basically, they go around with a figurative gun to everybody's head and say, support this or else that, right? Black Lives Matter, support it. Either use the hashtag Black Lives Matter, post a black square, or you're a racist, right? Use the hashtag #MeToo, support #MeToo and every single woman that speaks out, or you are a person that likes sexual abuse and supports rapists. It's over and over and over again, the same endeavor. Use the hashtag Ukraine, put a Ukraine flag, or you are pro-Putin and you support Putin, Vladimir Putin and Russia, and you want Russia to take over the world. That's making somebody an emotional hostage. You should be allowed to think about all of these concepts. And of course, when I thought about the Me Too movement, it's so funny at the time, because I wasn't a mother, and I said openly that someday I might have a son. And I'm going to have to make sure that the world that I help create is one that my son can thrive in. And this movement, the concept of just blanket believing women, I mean, how crazy is that? And then 4 years later, a blessing occurred in Amber Heard. I love that. I love her because she just shattered everything that was left of this abhorrent movement, this concept that women don't lie, right? I thought to myself, I don't know if I'm the only person that went through high school, but women can be vicious. Have you at least seen the movie Mean Girls? Because that's real life. That's exactly how it happens when you're a woman and you're growing up. Girls just do really mean stuff to each other. And it's sad because, you know, girls, I think beneath the age of 8, they're so sweet, they all play, they're so nice. And then something happens when we turn like 11 and we just get vicious, and suddenly it's girl on girl crimes all the time. And so I was applying just reality to the scenario, knowing that I have seen girls do the worst things to other girls, and knowing that, of course, we shouldn't just blanket believe women. And so I thought today, the reason why it was such a spectacle, and some people said, oh, well, we shouldn't be paying attention to this trial. Who cares what happens with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard? But there was a lot more that was riding on this trial. Really, it was putting the Me Too movement on trial. And I thought to myself, what better way to speak to you guys today than to talk to you about just simple rules that I wish that I had known and I had followed when I was your age. And it's kind of like Jordan wrote 12 rules, I guess, Jordan Peterson. I'm just going to give you 4 simple ones. And the first one is just to have the courage to be different. I can't think, thank you. I can't think of a time where it's just there's more peer pressure. Like, it's more difficult to be a woman growing up. It was already difficult before Facebook, before Twitter, before Instagram. You know, at least when I was coming out up as a kid, we didn't have all of that technology. And I think now it's just increasingly difficult to be a woman and to not go with the trend. And I think people realize, especially these people that are interested in social engineering and trying to cultivate your mind and tell you what you should follow, I think they realize the power of creating social trends, right? They realize that they can seize you, they can seize the narrative, they can emotionally manipulate you, but worst of all, their idea is to make you feel left out. Like, all of your friends are tweeting #MeToo, so how could you not be tweeting that, right? All of your friends are tweeting support of this or that. And it takes a tremendous amount of courage to say, actually, you know what? I don't even know where Ukraine is on a map, and I don't really need to jump in on this conversation, right? But you can be different. You don't have to go the way that the tide is going all the time. And the more that I become secure in the person that I am, the more I realize how brilliant difference is. I mean, my day started this morning at 4:30 a.m. because my son is sick, and he woke us up at 4:30, and then I got excited because I thought, oh, I can get out and I can go into my garden. It's a great time to garden. And so at 5:30, I was in the garden already pulling weeds, and I thought, what an absolute dweeb I am. I'm in a bathrobe, and I'm excited about gardening at 5:30 in the morning. And that's just being different, right? Not having to be the person that's doing what every single person is doing. It takes courage, and you should do it. The second thing that I want to talk to you guys about, and it's so important, and it's such a simple rule, but be feminine, right? That's something that it is incredible how they are trying to make femininity go out of style. And I want to be clear of what I'm talking about when I say be feminine, because that's not a call to go out and get Kylie Jenner lip injections. Candace told me to be feminine, so I got butt implants. Like, that's not femininity. That, to me, is insecurity that you're reading on the internet. What I'm talking about when I say is to be feminine is to not follow these abhorrent trends of the left constantly telling you to make yourself ugly, as if that's somehow going to make you a more powerful person. We see this constantly, you know, Miley Cyrus shaves off her head, and this person's dyeing her hair purple and blue and pink, and I don't shave my armpits anymore because something about the patriarchy. I mean, that just is, you smell, it's gross, you know? You can shave your armpits, don't worry about the patriarchy. Women hate that smell too. And you see this constantly, and you wonder, why is society trying to encourage women to stop being feminine at the same time that they're trying to encourage men to be more feminine, right? It's such an inverted reality to live in. And the truth is that femininity is a power. It is a wonderful power that women are born with. It can be a dangerous power, and it can be potent for men. This is something we learned with the Johnny Depp trial, right? This is a man that fell for a woman because she was beautiful, and she subsequently almost ruined his life. It's almost biblical, you know? Eve must have been very pretty. And she's like, just this one piece of fruit. And he's like, okay, sure, and lost paradise, right? It is truly a power. And when you look back at history books, and whether you're talking about real history and Cleopatra, think about men go out and they build the entire world. Helen of Troy, and then they're willing to launch entire wars and give up everything because a woman looked at him, right? Think about how much power that is that women have, right? That men are willing to do that, to launch wars, and what they're willing to do for a woman because of a woman's beauty. What society is asking you to do is to relinquish your power, and femininity truly, truly is a power. Which brings me to number 3. Your superpower, you will find, is motherhood. I cannot tell you. I think so much about it now that I am a mom and about to be a mom again, how interesting it is that our entire lives we are being conditioned to believe that our fertility is a curse, right? I mean, I think I must have been 11 when I went to the doctor and had one pimple. And he's like, birth control, take birth control. You know, birth control. It's not getting into class. Birth control, birth control. Men are bad. You need to, you know, get this under control. Get your fertility under control. Get all of this under control. And we're not really ever talking about, even when you talk about these debates and these abortion debates, it's women are being poisoned to believe that family is bad, right? That the patriarchy, the idea of being at home barefoot and pregnant, let me tell you how comfortable it is to be pregnant and barefoot. Like, do not let any person make you think that that is something bad. It is amazing. I was barefoot the whole way here, just put my shoes on, right? Just put them on 5 seconds ago. And you see this constant attack on fertility, on motherhood, on family in the media, and it's become so culturally relevant to denigrate that. And you wonder, when you look at these women who go out and they talk about this right that they feel that they have to abort a child 9 months in the womb, it's insane to me. I mean, that would mean that right now, all day, my daughter has been kicking, I've been feeling contractions. The concept that this is not a life, and that because, I don't know, as Michelle Williams and other people in Hollywood have said, oh, well, I want to aspire to my career, I should have the right to end her life. It's very scary, but what's more scary is to think that there are women at the forefront of that movement. It shows you how successful society has been in taking women against, making women fight against what is truly a superpower. And I thought a lot about this, and I thought, why does society do this? Why does society want women to hate their fertility, want women to be so anti-family, using these ridiculous expressions like, oh, go make your husband a sandwich. Is he hungry? Did he say something? I will gladly make my husband a sandwich any day of the week. I promise you. I make him dinner every single night. It's fine. And when I think about that, it is because I believe that the superpower of motherhood is the greatest threat to everything that we're seeing today in terms of over-governance, right? The left wants absolute power. The government wants power. I think at this moment, a lot of women are realizing, especially women that have children, that we are in this custody battle with the state for control over our children. I mean, how many of you guys go to a school that tried to put vaccine requirements for you to go back after COVID, right? Look around the room. That's absolutely crazy. That should not be a decision that the state is allowed to make. Your parents should be allowed to decide whether or not they think that you need this injection to go back to school, not the state. And yet, what the state realized was that if it wanted to grow itself, if it wanted to be omnipotent, if it wanted to control how every single person in society is operating, it had to attack mothers. It has to attack maternity, because that's the greatest power that we have. So it's true, men built the world, but women raised it, right? Women raised it. We decide in our households how the future is going to look, right? When we raise up these men, we're taught that men are so different from us. They're not. They're our sons, right? They are our fathers. They are our future husbands. And the government realized that if you can attack women and you can say, oh, women, go be like men. You should be the person that, you know, goes out and climbs the corporate ladder. You should be that individual. That other stuff is, you know, bad and backwards. You don't want to be making your husband a sandwich. Well, they realized that would mean that women would transfer custody over to the state. Now, the kids go to school and they're spending more time with their teachers than they're spending with mom and dad. They're racing, eating breakfast, running outside of the door, and then they come back in, maybe there's a quick dinner. But who's deciding now what the children are learning? Mom doesn't have time after an 8-hour workday to look over every single layer of what their children are learning in school. It was obvious. That was the obvious Machiavellian plan. That is what the modern feminist movement, which has absolutely nothing to do with equality. It's nothing to do with equality between the sexes. That's not what they're after. They are after control for the state. It's why they, at the same time that wave of feminism came in the 70s, the Department of Education was established. The government realizing, now we get to decide how these kids turn out. we get to tell them what they should believe in. It's what creates that mind, that woman that is so removed from her own superpower and her own strength that she would willingly go march in the streets talking about a right to end the life of a child that is kicking inside of her. That is crazy. And that is something that we have to fight to reverse. We have to change culture and make women realize that actually, when I'm asked the question, name one woman that you look up to, and people give all of these answers, I say every single stay-at-home mother. They are superheroes. And the last rule, and it goes right in line with all of that, is that it is our responsibility to defend men, okay? Defend men. This is a very scary time to be a guy in society. We are actually watching a society that wants to make manhood obsolete, that is trying to teach women that every single sign of masculinity is dirty and wrong and perverse and backwards. They're trying to make women identify masculinity as perversity, right? They're part of the women's movement. And when I was growing up and I had to take Feminism 101 course in school, that was what I learned, that when a man opens the door for you, right, that's him viewing you as weaker than him. And I think to myself, who is fighting, like, who's enjoying everything that's come out of all of this? Like, so what, do you want to slam a door in your face, right? These women are like, oh, I remember once Emma Watson, who I love as Hermione Granger, but not so sure about as Emma Watson, wrote this entire article or piece or gave an interview that, and it was being recapped in an article about how when she goes on dates, you know, she pays for her half just to show him. What? What are you winning here? Pay for it. Go ahead. I don't care. If you're taking me on a date, you can pay, right? I'm like, who's actually establishing this? So we get doors slammed in our faces. We now have to pay our half when we go on a date. This is the worst deal ever. Modern feminism is literally the worst deal ever. I want out. And it's funny because as I was making my husband, I do all of these, make all of these snacks for him when he hosts poker night once a month. And I was in the kitchen cooking everything. And I was talking to my assistant, and my husband was there, and I said, okay, honey, if you could actually go back, now knowing what the world is, if you could actually pick your gender, like before you got here, you talked to God, and you're like, I'm going to be a boy or a girl, would you hit man again, or would you hit woman? My husband said, psh, I'd be a man again, obviously, because I like to have logical thoughts, you know? I like to think logically, you know? And I'm sitting here and I'm laughing, and I was like, I would hit woman every single time. I mean, think about the blessing when you drive by and you see a guy on a skyscraper cleaning windows. I don't want that life, you know? I just don't want that life. I don't want that stress. But me waking up at 5:30 to snip my garden and to go make dinner and to raise children, I mean, that's the beautiful things in life, right? To be able to raise things, to be beautiful. Like this, I think femininity is just the greatest gift in society. And it's so sad to me to look around and to see how all of those things have been so perverted. And once you get married and you find the right person to marry, which is super important, making sure you marry the right individual, you will realize that all of these societal and gender roles are not meant to be perverted. They're beautiful. They work together beautifully. It is a symphony. It is symbiotic. It is the yin to the yang. Our roles that are different from men and for women is designed by God. It is something that will exist no matter what, and it's natural. So really, and I want to definitely give you guys 10 minutes to ask me questions, but what I tell people all the time is don't try to get to a fight in life with your biology, because I promise you, your biology will win, right? You cannot win against your biology. You can do it for a little while. You can experiment with feminism when you're in college, like it's a drug. I experimented a little bit with feminism when I was in college, you know. I hate guys. Yeah, I'm never going to cook for my husband one day. Fine, play with it. Have fun when you're in college. But wise up to it thereafter very quickly. Recognize it when you see it. Because I am telling you, the most heartbreaking email that I have ever received, comment rather, online, was when I was speaking with Dennis Prager on my show about all of the ills of modern feminism, knowing that it is just directing women to be miserable. Be miserable. Why do I want to work 25 hours a day and not get to come home to the sound of pitter-patter of children? You know, why would I want to reject having a man who is really, my husband is my best friend and my partner in life, all of these beautiful things that people are trying to spoil for you throughout the education system. When this woman wrote a comment to me, and I spoke about that to Dennis Prager, the comment said, Candace, thank you so much for speaking about what exactly modern feminism is. Unfortunately for me, I woke up to the lies too late. I am now 50, I think she said she was 55 years old. I have no family. I have no husband, no kids, and I have to take medicine every single day to fight my depression. I hope that there are girls that listen to you before it's too late. Those words are seared into my mind, and it is why it is so important to continue to talk out, to be courageous, to not care where the wind is blowing. Don't care if people tell you it's your duty as a woman. That's the least favorite thing. As a woman, how could you possibly say this or that, right? And then I usually answer back with, as a woman with a brain, right? Which you may not have. Some people may not have, right? Be courageous, be different, you guys, defend men. Bless you guys for having me. I want to use this last 8 minutes to take questions from you guys. Thank you so much. Wow, it's going to be longer than 8 minutes, that's for sure.
If you guys could make an orderly line, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hi.
So I was wondering.
I'm going to try to answer questions as fast as possible so I can get to as many people. Okay.
Ooh, that's a problem. Can you give me 2 minutes just to share my story with you and everybody else?
Oh, we have
1 minute.
So many girls.
Okay. Well, I just want to say, so I don't work for Turning Point USA, but every time I go to a place, I just tell everyone, like, the United States is the best country in the whole world. And they ask me why, and I'm like, well, you don't know where I come from. So I come from a place where we had electricity and water like 3 times a week, and we were lucky if we had that in the same day. It was usually you have it once and you don't have it the next day. So I come here and so many opportunities are given to me. All these things, no matter your race, your color, your gender, all these things are given to you. And kids don't see that, and it's because we're raising a generation of kids who are ungrateful. They are being raised to hate their country, they are being raised to hate their family, they are being raised to hate being an American, and I'm like, how can you do that? And let me tell you something, at the age of 5, my father left me. I'm almost done. At the age of 5, he was like, oops, I'm out. And I haven't seen him since then. Well, I did see him 2 years ago. He wanted my help finding a job. That's how you know that God does not bless.
It's a blessing to live in this country.
It is. And I just wanted to say thank you for everything you do.
You're
and
so sweet.
I'm just glad to be here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I'm sorry to rush you. I just want to get all the girls. All right, if everyone can keep their questions to like 15 seconds, we can try to fly through this. Ready? Go.
Okay, well, thank you for writing your book and being who you are and speaking truth. So I just wanted to ask how these social justice companies like BLM and these social justice warriors have gotten such a hold on our youth and how they created such division, and how you think that's rooted and how you think that is the best way we can overcome it in our everyday life.
Because they are ideologically sponsored by the government, who wants more power, and government gains power through division. So whether it's white versus black, woman versus male, tall versus short, rich versus poor, when the government sees that, it's an opportunity to drive a wedge between individuals, which garners more power for them. So the first people that get on board with these radical social justice movements, it's the government, right? They go, oh yes, 100%, 100%. And then what do they also say? What's the solution? More governance, right? We're going to need to launch a program, critical race theory. We're going to need to take billions of your tax dollars to solve the race issues in America. And of course, black America is not getting better. White America is not getting better. It's never been more polarized. Personally, I miss the 90s. Everybody was chill then. If you guys were not alive during then.
You missed the golden decade was honestly the 90s, and that's what I'm trying to go back to. But it's very easy to fight. Just don't play the game. And if you're uncomfortable not playing the game, just keep your mouth shut and know that you will be better for it. And not having played these games or invested in it, don't fall victim to peer pressure. Next question.
Hi. I was wondering what one of your hardest obstacles was to get to where you were and how you overcame it.
My hardest obstacle was my entire life. And it's funny because I remember being such an angry child. Not angry, but just like I was so sad and frustrated with the fact that I grew up poor. I hated the fact that I grew up poor. It was like having poverty, not being able to go on school field trips. My mom and dad just couldn't afford it. My mom didn't graduate high school. You know, my dad didn't go to college. Not that it matters. My dad was a plumber. But I just thought this is so unfair. Like life is so unfair. And, you know, for me, it was, when I adjusted my mentality in the beginning and I thought, well, this is all unfair because of where I started, my life fell apart. Being a victim sucked. I'm telling you, I did it. I joined the campaigns of thinking, oh, woe is me, I'm a victim. It's not fair because I started here. And then when I transformed my mentality and I became a conservative and I realized that the world was not happening to me, but I was happening to the world, I got true power for the first time. I started realizing my parents made their decisions, but I can certainly make my decisions, right? And it changed my life. When you stop seeing every single person as your enemy and you actually start seeing one another as like, oh, this is a potential person that I can link up with, I can start a business with this person, and you don't allow them to color your perspective with, well, that's a tall person, that's a rich person, that's a white person, the world becomes your oyster, and that's exactly what happened for me. 15 seconds, go.
Hi, my name's Emerson. I'm from Portland, Oregon, and
whoa, there we go.
What would your best piece of advice be for students standing up against the Democratic educational agenda in their liberal high schools who are not old enough to vote?
Oh, that's a very good question. First off, my best advice would be to make sure that you have an ally in your parents, because it's very difficult at that age. Like, I'm not even allowed to speak at high schools and things of that nature because they have so much control over high school students and their minds. First and foremost, speak up. I had a girl that emailed me during Black History Month. You won't even believe it. They said, just name successful black people in February, and she had this radical lesbian trans femme teacher, I don't know what her pronouns are, and she rose her hand and she said Candace Owens, and the teacher said, I refuse to put that name on the board. Crazy. High school student. She's a junior. She sent an email to me, and I personally emailed the school, and I said, explain to me why I'm not black. You know? So you have to put their toes to the fire, and you need to be willing to say to the administration, because let me tell you, two things that your administrations are afraid of is bad publicity and getting sued, and both of those things are possible through the public education system. Great job. 15 seconds. Go.
Hello, Candace. I just want to say God bless you, and you not only changed my life, but you played a part in saving it, so I thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
I go to Baylor University here in Waco, Texas. Sick and Bears, and I'm aspiring to become also a stay-at-home mom and a homemaker.
Yes, that is so aspirational. I love that.
I appreciate it.
And it's hard. It's the toughest job in the world.
Yes, and I wanted to know, as a young woman in college, what can I do, like, with my femininity, and how can I use my femininity to attract good men and to hopefully find a husband someday?
No, you will. Here's the thing. Men don't like women that act like men, unless they're gay, right? I mean, that's literally, like, they're not looking for women that act like men. And it's something that people won't tell you. It's like, this is one of the great lies of modern feminism, is that these women get on this corporate ladder believing that it makes them more attractive to men. Like, a man is not looking at a woman going, well, I hope she makes 6 figures, right? They're looking at a woman and they're thinking, is she going to be the mother of my children, right? And that is, I am telling you, you have way more luck when you begin tapping into that nurturing aspect, your natural superpowers. Men
men just find those women to be more desirable. I'm telling you, it's like this weird lie that has been implanted in everybody's head. The more successful I become, the more men are going to want me. And in reality, what it really does is it makes men feel smaller in a lot of ways. Not saying that you shouldn't want to have success in your life, but when you're trying to be a man, they don't know what their role is. You guys are now polarized pieces of each other. You know what I mean? You're fighting against each other as opposed to having this symbiotic relationship. And so I'm a big believer, let men lead, right? And when I say lead, understand the man is the head of the household, but the woman is the neck, okay? And that head does not turn without the neck. So nice to meet you. Next question.
Candace.
Hi, 15 seconds, go.
I'm Elise, I'm from New Jersey. I literally love you so much, and so does my family. I just wanted to ask you about our local school systems and everything going on. So they're pushing extreme agendas on our children, especially as early as kindergarten. And I just wanted to know your opinion on what we can do on a local level to help these kids in our towns that are being bombarded by our school districts every day with these extreme agendas and these fascist school boards, and they're just relentlessly taking over our kids' lives. So
Two things. First and foremost, people need to run for their local elections. We make such a big splash about presidential elections, you know, congressional elections. Local school boards are almost the most important things that you can possibly run for if you're aspirational to be in politics. It's so important, and I think people realize that now. Number two, my son is not even 1.5. I can't wait. I don't want to wish away time, but I just cannot wait until he's 5, because let me tell you, when I am a mom and this stuff happens, I'm going to show you how it's done. I will be at that school every day. I will wake my kids up and I will be like, what are we wearing to school today? Do you want to match? Do you want to match? We wear the same thing? Because I got to go talk to your principal again. They're going to roll their eyes when they see my Suburban coming up. Like, you know, like fully, no. I'll show you how it's done when I get there. 4 more years, 4 more years. Love you too.
This is going to be the last question because you have a flight to catch.
Okay, 2 more questions. There we go.
Hi, my name is Hannah. I'm from Houston, Texas. I wanted to ask you how I can practice femininity as a daughter and a sister.
You already are. The femininity is what you're born with. It is such a natural occurrence. And now that I have a son, and you really start to laugh when you have children at the idea that there's no differences between the genders. I mean, it becomes funny. My son wants to go to war every day. He wakes up and he's, stick, beat it, trucks, you know? All he wants to do is play with trucks, dig in dirt, eat dirt, throw things, whack people. He assaulted my assistant because he just pulled her hair and punched her when he didn't get something. We're trying to work around that. Obviously, he's only 1 year old. They naturally have an aggression and this thing inside of them. And then you see a little girl and they've got their baby dolls, right? And they're already nurturing these baby dolls and taking care of things. And our interests, we are different, right? That is the crazy thing. Men and women are not the same. We're never going to be the same. We are different. Women begin speaking faster in life. We speak more words a day than men speak. We love to communicate what we like to talk about. Somebody said to me a few weeks ago, men, when they want to get together and they want to hang out, they unite over competition. To this day, right? They want to go watch the sports game and scream. They want to watch, Sunday night football and yell. That's how they unite. Competition. That's a fun time. If I said to my husband, want to just go get wine and talk? He'd be like, I'd rather saw my right foot off, honey. Go with your girls and be different. So know that it's not something to aspire to. It's something that you already are. Just don't allow society to convince you to reject it. Last question.
Thank you, Candace. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Candace, for letting me be the last question. I'm from Ohio. My name's Claire.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, I work in corporate America. I work for a little-known lingerie company, Victoria's Secret.
Okay.
In finance.
I think they got rid of the hot girls there now, right?
Yeah, they got a little woke.
Yeah, just a little woke, yeah.
Just a little bit. The great company.
I don't know about you, but I wanted to see Lena Dunham in a bathing suit walking down the runway, so I'm very excited.
Oh, did I ever want to? Yep. So my question to you, how do I respectfully and effectively try to work through corporate America? I love working in retail. I love working in fashion. But how do I work around and still hold up my beliefs and speak out as a conservative woman.
Yeah. Well, just make sure you're not being held hostage would be the first thing, right? If this is an environment that is meant for you, you will flourish in it. People will understand your direction. You will speak to these people and say, hey, you know, like maybe we could not make the women intentionally ugly at Victoria's Secret. Like, you know, that's a great environment. And you should always, it's always good to have a challenge and to want to change things in an effective manner. But if you come up against a wall and you realize that your voice is not added there, don't waste your talent there. There's so many other companies that haven't been created yet, right? There are tons of women in this room right now that, trust me, do not want to get on board the ugly train in society. So make sure you also keep in the back of your minds that you don't have to bend to the will in the corporate culture. You could also create your own corporate culture if you're having a good time and establish your own country. I love entrepreneurs, and every single person in this room could be one. Thank you, ladies! So much fun.
For Matt Walsh, where we are going to ask the question, what is a woman? We have another giveaway for you, sweepstakes. So who would love to meet Kayleigh McEnany? Anyone would love to meet Kayleigh McEnany? Yeah, okay. So we are going to select randomly 5 people that currently run Turning Point USA chapters. So congrats. We'll figure it out. You'll be in the running. And 5 people that decide to start a Turning Point USA chapter or high school chapter or faith chapter. You say, how do I do that? You go to our booth in there, and if you have signed up already or you want to sign up in the coming hours, it's a great use of time. Say, I want to take that bold step to start a Turning Point USA group. Then you might be selected to get a picture with Kayleigh McEnany, okay? So you could do that in there, and we will see you at 7 o'clock with Matt Walsh. We'll be right back.